Sitelan. Drop it. Power panel. Jake, you and John Einroll and Caroline Johnson in studio. All right, how you doing?
Really good. It's amazing to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, great to have you here. Of course, you can check out Caroline on Rebel Headquarters, John on Damage Report. Who doesn't have fun on the TYT network? Well, Republicans.
The watch list is a dour place.
Corporate Democrats don't have fun on TYT. No, not at all. No, and they're not going to have any fun on tonight's show. Neither are Republicans. So, but we do have at least one Democrat, two Democrats doing good things, at least. Okay, and then a lot of Biden.
Must be in the
sorry to
second hour.
expose you to that, but it is the news, and that's what we're in the business of doing. All right, good news, bad news, ugly news, all of that here, which brings me to John.
Let's do it. Joe Manchin just wants to see the world burn. He's once again blocking the Democrats' paltry efforts to do something about climate change, and it has become so indisputable that he doesn't care about this, and that he is willing to let the climate just go up in flames, that even the New York Times, this is how they wrote about his most recent move. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, who took more campaign cash from the oil and gas industry than any other senator, and who became a millionaire from his family coal business, independently blew up the Democratic Party's legislative plans to fight climate change. That's the New York Times. That was like the beginning of the article. Usually the truth, let alone the opining, happens much later. But no, he's killing it once again. They are sort of in the background, still trying to do some sort of reconciliation bill. And every month or so we get an update that implies that, oh, maybe we're moving towards a deal. But no climate, according to him. And of course, this is just the latest in a long line of him single-handedly or teaming up like the Wonder Twins with Kirsten Sinema, destroying these efforts. First, he killed a plan that would have forced power plants to clean up their climate warming pollution. Then he shattered an effort to help consumers pay for electric vehicles. Finally, he said he could not support government incentives for solar and wind companies or any of the other provisions that the rest of his party and his president say are vital to ensure a livable planet. It's weird that the guy who owns a coal company doesn't want to subsidize renewable energy. So weird and totally not corrupt. But here's the thing. Breaking news, not long before we went live. Is he actually killing it? He was very clear within the last day, but now we read on Axios, Manchin opens door to climate spending after July inflation numbers. See, he went on a radio show in West Virginia and said, Chuck, talking about Chuck Schumer, can we just wait until the inflation decisions come out in July and then make a decision? Inflation is absolutely killing many people, metaphorically, not literally like the climate change will. But as far as I'm concerned, I wanted climate. He speaks like Trump. I want energy policy. Chuck, if you're on a political deadline and it has to be done in July, the one thing you know you can get done is basically do that bill, write a piece of legislation on reducing drug prices, letting Medicare negotiate. That saves about $288 billion over 10 years. Take 40 billion of that, extend the ACA discounts that people were getting. So he was done with it, but now he totally wants climate. And so I don't know about you guys, but the football has been placed out again. I feel like running towards it and trying to kick it.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot here, and this is a really important story because it shows you not just about this bill, but about how politics works. First of all, if the New York Times mentions your donors, that means they have gotten permission from other people in power. Otherwise, they will never, ever mention it. They did one good piece about Manchin's donors a while back, which we gave them a lot of credit for. And now this is their second time mentioning it. It's like by far the most relevant thing. It is nearly 100% of politics. But if a mainstream media outlet is mentioning it, that means other corporate Democrats have told them it's okay. You can actually say it this time because there are an equal number, at least, of corporate Democrats on the other side. Otherwise, they would never, ever say it in a story. So that must mean the establishment is pissed. Okay, so or at least some portions of the establishment are pissed. And by the way, there are a lot of donors who do want action on climate change. Because one of the things that, and I told you this a couple of years back, we'll get to what we said about Manchin in a second too, because a lot of rich folks, and some of them bad guys, some of them good guys who've always been on the right side of things. But even some of the bad guys are going, oh yeah, we live on this planet. Like we have $1 gazillion, but it's not gonna be much use to us if the entire planet melts down. Okay, maybe we'll let you do something about that. But now, of course, on the other side is the coal companies, the oil companies, and they push back super hard. So it's a little bit of a battle, and so that's why you've got the New York Times willing to say the truth for like a second. It was mentioned in a paragraph and then they moved on. Okay, now to the heart of the issue. We told you, here, we got a clip, right? We did. Of me saying, but you watch the Young Turks on any given day. You've heard me say this thousands of times. You've heard Anna, John, everybody say this. But I give you this old clip because I want you to understand, politics is solvable. It's just that people like the New York Times, CNN, corporate Democrats, they're choosing not to solve it. It's actually super simple. That's why we're almost always right. I'll tell you the magic answer as to how we solve it in a second. But this is us telling you what was gonna happen before it happened. I'm telling you right now, the minute they pass the infrastructure bill, that's a corporate backed bill, they lose all leverage instantly. They have literally zero leverage. I wish it weren't the case, but that's the case. And so what is Manchin gonna do? What any sensible negotiator would do. I changed my mind. In fact, I didn't even change my mind. I told you ahead of time that I was equally likely to vote no. And you were an idiot and surrendered to me anyway. And that's exactly what he did. He said, oh yeah, I'm not gonna vote for your bill. And then he said, okay, come this way a little bit further. Don't criticize me. Don't criticize me, which leads to that last portion that John mentioned. The reason he goes on West Virginia TV is or radio to talk about like, oh no, you never know. It's because for the first time, he has gotten pushback from other Democrats. And look what a tiny amount of pushback did. Like remember, Biden hasn't pushed back and sent his spokesperson out today to say, I will never push back. I'm the weakest person in America. My beloved Joe Manchin has basically done what me and my donors want anyway, right? So Biden's not doing it, but it's like Senator Whitehouse, Senator Schumer tweaked him a little bit, like in the public. Oh, he got mentioned in a newspaper article. They sent out a tweet and he's like, whoa. I mean, I was gonna do it. I mean, look at what a tiny microscopic amount of pressure gets him to do. Imagine if you'd put a world of pressure on him. All of a sudden he'd be able to do, I like climate, right? So this is so fundamental. So why did we know he was never gonna do the climate deal? Because politics is simple, 3 words, it's always been the case. Certainly since the mid-1970s, follow the money. If you follow his money, and we have on TYT Investigates, we showed you he made $5 million personally from coal in the last 10 years, and so is his son. So and he's got a coal company, etc. But most importantly, the donors. The donors he's the #1 recipient of fossil fuel campaign donations. They're bribes. So we tell you all the time, if you follow the money, i.e., follow the bribes, you'll get to that answer 100% of the time. That's why we're apparently geniuses. Like the mainstream media can't figure it out. They're like, what is it? Is it the color of the bill? Is it when they release it? Is it the summer, the fall? I can't tell anything. What's going on? What are the debates and the principles and the ideology? We're like, duh, it's the bribes. We're right 100% of the time. It's super easy. So there, I solved politics for you. And what is the other thing we say? When corporate useless lying Democrats tell you, there's nothing we could do. There's nothing we can do. What do we tell you? Pressure. You apply a tiny amount of pressure and he's like, oh, I can't believe you're twisting my arm. I like the climate. We're right about everything, okay? It's not because we're geniuses, because it's really, really simple. All of Washington has to lie to you to make it appear complicated. Caroline.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think the strategy that he is ostensibly going with now is that he's worried that with inflation, that voters might look at any attempt to increase spending anywhere might be, really volatile for him. People thinking that this has anything to do with inflation or gas prices. Of course, these things are like very indirectly related, as everything is. But the reality is that spending on infrastructure and necessary improvements to our climate change policy are absolutely unrelated to the gas prices every day that people are seeing. And if that were the case, like, let's go back. I read today that Manchin in his first election for Senate, like, his big ad was that he shot a rifle through Obama's climate policy or whatever.
That's right.
And look how much higher gas is now, and we haven't done anything. So like, equating climate policy with higher gas prices is totally false. This is what the Republicans are doing. They're saying we can't have this because people can't afford food, they can't afford gas, and they're absolutely unrelated. We only need to look at our past inaction on climate change and how much higher gas is right now. So yeah, he's absolutely wasted 2 years of the Democrats' time. What my question is that, like, do we really think that this is just Manchin, or do we think that there are like other Democrats in the wings who, has Manchin basically like acknowledged that he will be the villain? Him and Sinema are like sort of trading off, rotating. Like, do we really think that this is just him, or do we think that there are people in the wings in our own party that are also pressuring him not to do anything so that they don't have to go out and be held accountable, as he is basically like, he knows that this is his position in the party now?
So that's a nuanced answer. So let me just, a couple of things real quick. So TYT is the longest running show in internet history. So we actually covered that ad when Manchin put it out. Him saying like, oh, I hate Democrats. Look at someone shoot Obama's climate bill. I hate anyone trying to do anything about climate change. Boy, it was so hard to tell which direction Manchin was gonna go. Reporters were flummoxed by it for years in the Biden administration. Oh, which one? What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? It's so obvious what he's gonna do. Number two, Caroline's point is devastating. Not only have they not done anything on climate since then, not only did we have 4 years of Trump since then that put us backwards, but they didn't pass this climate bill. How could it be the climate bill that caused inflation if it never passed?
Yep.
I mean, these things are super simple, right? So that's why Washington is an illusion. Everything you see from corporate media is meant to trick you.
Yeah.
So they don't say these things that are super, super obvious that would get you to understand that politics is simple. Now, to Caroline's point, real quick, to our question, I would guess that there are 40 Democratic senators that agree with Manchin. Now, again, if you tell that at New York Times or CNN, their heads will explode. How dare you, dear sir? Those are wonderful, powerful people. And they have told us that they don't agree with Manchin. So we have written it down in our role as journalists without questioning it or asking for any evidence, okay? Now, why do I say at least 40? It seems like Markey and White House and a couple others really do care. And White House actually did a great job of putting out a tweet that Biden could do like 9 different executive orders that would actually help a lot. It wouldn't be as good as this bill, but it would help a lot. And my prediction is Biden will do 0 of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so why do I predict that about Biden? Why do I predict it about the other 40 Democratic senators? Because they all take money from fossil fuel companies. So if you're bribed, you're gonna do what the person who bribed you told you to do. Now, at this point, they don't have to come forward. Manchin's their cover story. Oh, can you believe Manchin killed that bill? Golly gee, voters, I am so mad. New York Times, write it down, write it down. CNN, say it on there. I am so mad about that bill. Then they turn around, I bet you very literally, call their donors and say, don't worry, it got killed.
Yep.
Because they're corrupt. I solved it for you.
Yep, and if the Democrats wanted, they could institute some sort of litmus test that you cannot accept money from these industries. They could do that to send a strong signal to the voters that they actually care, because the voters certainly care. The voters care about dealing with climate change. The Democrats just don't care that that's something they could theoretically use to win elections if they actually reassured people. Yeah, your point was so good. Look, I don't know what's going to cause the massive rise in gas prices in 3 years or in 7 years or in 12 years, but I know we're going to endlessly have those. And even between them, when the price drops from its peak, it will settle at a point that's higher than it was previously, because I got news for you. The Republican plan, and for many Democrats, the plan is to drill more pipes, to extract more oil. No new oil is being created, by the way. You can suck up what's down there as fast as you want, you're just gonna run out. That's how it works. The sun isn't running out, the wind isn't running out. Seems like maybe at some point we should transition over to that. And for now, Manchin's more concerned about inflation and the deficit. And as far as I can see, the only solution to that is for the Republicans to take over. They won't fix those problems, but you'll never hear about it again, and they'll pass trillions of dollars in tax cuts with no concerns about the deficit whatsoever. For now, though, Manchin says we need to find out about inflation. Bureau of Labor Statistics is going to release July's consumer price index on August 10th. So I hope there's good numbers, because that's totally why he's doing it or not. For now, though, we do have some numbers, not those numbers, but well, we know that for the 2021 to 2022 election cycle, Joe Manchin got the most money from a number of different industries, including, seems relevant, coal mining, also all mining, and natural gas transmission and distribution, oil and gas, also savings and loans. Hey, tobacco, that's fun. Alternate energy production and services is at number 2. I don't know what that actually includes. It sounds like it would be solar and wind. I'm doubting that it does. But if that is what it is, could you guys give him more money, please? Could you become number 1 so that he'll do the right thing? Also, electric utilities are there. I'm sure none of this is influencing it, and they're not giving him money to influence him. That would be bribery. They just like democracy and want to be a part of it, and thus the money. But honestly, as much as that, as much as like you can find individual, like the nation's largest coal producer, Peabody Energy, they gave $5,000 to Manchin. 2IT Investigates reported that. That's obvious corruption. Alliance Resource Partners CEO publicly thanked Manchin in a quarterly earnings call. That's good. The future generations aren't giving him any thanks for dooming them. But for right now, there's a CEO that has nice things to say. Honestly, as important as that donor money is, I'm not even convinced that that's the most important part. Because donor money goes to your campaign and you want that, but that's not your money. You can't get a tune-up on your Maserati with that money. You can't buy a bigger yacht with that money. No, for you to do that, you need your own money. And he's getting it very directly, very literally. Here are his yearly dividends from his energy company. That is so much money per year. Just in dividends. He's not, understand, Manchin is not digging for coal. I want to be very clear about this. He is not down there digging up the coal. He just sits back and earns hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. In 1 year, over $800,000. Actually, 2 of them were over $800,000. All told, he's made well over $5 million, and he would like to continue making that fabulously large amount of money. Understand it has no effect on his life. He already has the Maserati, he has the yacht. Look at Manchin. What do you think he's doing with his money? It doesn't matter. It's just a number in a bank account. But for that to go up, your future must be doomed, and he is perfectly fine making that trade-off.
Okay, I just want to say last 2 things here from me. One is I want you to know that in this, the things that he killed, he also killed a tax raise on rich people and corporations. Why? He's a rich person and owns a corporation. Boy, this is so complicated to figure out. And to John's point, look, the campaign donations also matter, especially for Manchin, because it allows him to protect his coal company and to get contracts for his coal company, because he's a really powerful senator. And if you're in the coal business, you'd want to give his company a contract so that he looks out for you. So both his own personal money and the campaign donations wind up helping him get richer and certainly more powerful, etc. And so at the end of the day, now here, I will instantly become the best reporter in politics. You ready? Joe Manchin is a liar. He only cares about the money. Boom. No other Washington reporter has ever said that. I just said that. I'm obviously correct. They're all obviously incorrect. I'm the best journalist in America. Thank you.
Yeah, I just think wrapping it up, people you don't have to choose, you should not have to choose between a livable climate and job security.
Yeah.
It's a false equivalency, and like that's the only way we can get out of this situation is just for more and more people to realize that the politicians who claim that that is our reality, that you can either have a job and support your family or live in like utter, climate disaster. That's not a choice. That is real, and just keep spreading that message, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's really, yeah.
All right, we got to take a quick break here. We have so much more for you guys, including more devastating news. Okay, I'm going to use a Martin Luther King quote on Joe Biden. I think you'll enjoy it. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Caroline. Also, Matthew Valente, Lucy Massacre, Paul Smith, Anne Marie DeMola, they just joined. So they're all part of the Young Turks now. You guys are heroes. We can't do the show without you guys. You make it possible. So hit that join button below the video on YouTube or tyt.com/join. That's logical. John.
It is. Let's move forward.
I know that the goal of the two states seems so far away, while indignities like restrictions on movement and travel or the daily worry of your children's safety are real and they are immediate. So even if the ground is not ripe at this moment to restart negotiations, the United States and my administration will not give up on trying to bring the Palestinians and Israelis and both sides closer together.
Joe Biden says that he supports two states. He acknowledges that the fact that we haven't gotten there yet is absolutely horrendous for most Palestinian people. And yet the ground isn't ripe. And who is he to ripen the ground? He's merely the president of the United States, the leader of the free world. So it's not ripe. It's not here. Oh, also, although he says the Palestinian people deserve a state of their own that's independent, sovereign, viable, and contiguous, I know that the goal of a two-state solution is so far away, so far. And in the meantime, pressure points that could be pressed to try to get both parties to a solution or get them to negotiating will go unpressed. Joe Biden knows how to put pressure on people he disagrees with. Take a look at how he treats progressives. But when it comes to people that he would really like to continue working with, whether in the United States or abroad, the leadership of Israel, no, he's not. He identifies all of the things that are going so poorly, the pain, the suffering, the death. He's not going to do anything to change that, even if in doing so, he might make it more likely that some sort of negotiation could take place. The president of Palestine says that the recognition of the state of Palestine is urgent, and that specifically, and this gets into some of the things Biden was referencing, they have to press Israel to halt expansion of settlements and begin withdrawing from the West Bank. Those are very specific things that Biden could pressure on, but so far he has shown that he doesn't have the appetite.
John, you're not being fair. He also mentioned an Irish poem. So
he did read a poem. Yeah. He's apparently he's been going to the same classes on politics as Nancy Pelosi has.
Yep. And I think that will soothe the Palestinian soul. So we're okay. We're problem solved. This is another easy one that I can solve for you guys right away. Is there anything Joe Biden can do? He says he's not even going to try. He says, "Oh, it's not the right time." That the two-state solution is really far away. Why is it really far away? I could solve it tomorrow. Oh, come on, Cenk, you're a ridiculous braggart. You couldn't solve it tomorrow. Yeah, I could. Okay, Israel, we're not giving you any more aid, not $1 until you get 2 states. You got 2 states, we're happy to give aid to both of you. We're happy to give just as much aid to Israel. We're happy to give more aid to Israel, okay? But we like Israel. We want Israel to be safe and secure and all that. We also want the Palestinians to have a state and be safe and secure. I'm taking away all of the billions of dollars in funding until we get a peace deal. We'd get a peace deal within, let's be fair, 2 weeks, okay? Will Biden do that? Of course not. He doesn't want to, he's a coward. Let's be honest, he has tons and tons of donors that tell him not to do that. Okay, you're not allowed to say that. And there's good reason why people are concerned about that. There's a history of anti-Semitic tropes about people controlling leaders, etc. But no, it's people that like Israel are one of thousands of lobbyists, right? They're not the only ones. They don't control everyone. That's not true. But are they among the lobbyists? Yeah, of course they are. Do they give a lot of money? Yes, they do. Does it affect politicians like Biden? Only about 100%. Just like we did in the last story about oil. The oil companies give money to Manchin and Biden and then do as they're told. So this is all about money. This is all about lobbyists. This is all about donors. And so Joe Biden just told the Palestinians, wait for a more convenient season. In other words, you don't donate enough to me or other Democrats. We're not gonna do a goddamn thing for you. So I'd like to quote an actual hero. That's Martin Luther King. Now I'm gonna put in the word African American for the word he uses here just to make sure I don't offend anyone, okay? But I'm gonna read you the quote directly otherwise. He said, I've almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the African American's greatest stumbling block in his stride towards freedom is not the white citizens counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to the order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises African Americans to wait for, quote, a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. He might as well have been describing Joe Biden about the Palestinians. Carolyn.
Yeah, and I mean, as we've alluded to, using his Irish heritage and the analogy of the English colonization of Ireland, something that like I care deeply about and was so excited to wake up and see that quote. That was the first thing I saw, was he was saying like, as my Irish Catholic ancestors know, just using that and then actually to see the bulk of his statement, which was like, oh, I get it, exactly the Dr. Martin Luther King quote of I get it, but am I the most powerful man in the world and am I gonna do anything about it? Absolutely not. I think that the struggles that Irish share with Palestinians, and it's very evident in Belfast and Derry, there's Palestinian flags everywhere. It's like a very almost sacred relationship between these two struggles, and to use that to your messaging agenda and then to just totally walk back any actual policy or any actual like attempt to ameliorate the conditions for the exact people you're saying that you care about is so disingenuous and so it's offensive. And I think there's a lot of Americans of Irish descent, and we should be outraged that he would use our past, being colonized, our past struggle, and just A, throw it away, and B, use it as disingenuously as he is. Just wanted to point out that in 1980, Ireland became the first country in the EU to call for an independent Palestinian state. And that this relationship is very deep and long reaching. I encourage anyone to look more into it, but I can't even express how just disgusted I am with this language, and that he just continues to just really step into these issues that honestly, it would just be better if you just didn't say anything at all. Yeah. Stop using people's struggle to your own advantage and playing both sides. It's infuriating.
Yeah, and Palestinians, honestly, if I can give you one piece of advice, collect all of your money and bribe as many American politicians as you can. That's the only thing they care about. And they don't care about religion. That's why the anti-Semitic tropes make no sense at all. They take money from Christians, Muslims, they don't care at all, right? So if you bribe them more than the other side, you'll have a state within 2 weeks. All you gotta do is bribe American politicians. They're the most corrupt people on earth, which leads us perfectly to Saudi Arabia, okay? They're Muslim, they bribe Americans, they get everything they want. You see, they don't care about religion at all. It's just about the bribes.
Exactly, yeah, if you were disgusted at what Biden was saying, wait until you see what he was doing. Let's jump into B3. There you're seeing Joe Biden arriving, and that's MBS, leader of Saudi Arabia, greeted with a fist bump. Joe Biden has been criticized quite a bit, understandably, following that. But a Biden official was quoted as saying, "We're focused on the meetings, not the greetings." See, you say that, but Biden fist bumped MBS. That's not something he does organically. They made that choice. They made the choice to, I don't even, like, legitimize isn't even the right word, to bro around with the guy who ordered the brutal assassination of Jamal Khashoggi, let alone insert a billion crimes and terrible things. Biden said that he would make MBS and Saudi Arabia a pariah until they improved in these areas. He was going to cut off the sale of weapons. He was going to do all these things, rhetorical and substantive, hit them where it hurts in terms of legitimacy as well as money. And none of that has actually come true. Now they can brush off some of the criticism, but there's a bit that I think is going to sting a bit more. The surviving widow of Jamal Khashoggi put out a Photoshop tweet mocking up what Jamal might have said upon seeing this. And it says, "Hey POTUS, is this the accountability you promised for my murder? The blood of MBS's next victim is on your hands." And it just, knowing everything that we know about what happened to Khashoggi, seeing the fist bump there, the like collegial, so friendly thing there. Now, Biden was asked about this, and here is what he has to say.
We just heard from Jamal Khashoggi's wife, who said, after this visit, the blood of MBS's next victim is on your hands. What do you say to Mrs. Khashoggi?
I'm sorry she feels that way. I was straightforward back then. I was straightforward today.
Except that he wasn't. He said they'd be pariahs, and understandably so. But now, not so much. Maybe it's for the oil, it's for the defense partnership. I don't know, we can debate the reasons, but you don't fist bump with a pariah. That's not really how that works.
Yeah, well, good news, he loves Republicans, and Jesse Waters on Fox News backed him up and said, "Well, do you want gas at $10? Let's just let the guy get away with it." And then when Geraldo Rivera challenged Jesse Waters said, "Yeah, you're right, they also did 9/11, 15 out of the 19 hijackers. That was bad, but he's like, I still don't want higher gas prices." So this is the one, and so Jesse Waters agreed with Biden. Go ahead, hug Khashoggi. The Khashoggi's murderer, MBS. Who cares? Who cares? It's all about money. That's the only thing that anybody right-wing in America cares about. And yes, by right-wing, I also include Joe Biden, for sure, right? And so I want you to understand one quick thing. Why did they do the fist bump? That seems weird, right? Biden doesn't normally do fist bumps. I guarantee you that they workshopped it, and they came up with that quote that John read you. "We're focused on the meetings, not the greetings." And I guarantee they were so proud when they came up with that. And then why the fist bump? Because Obama once got in trouble for doing a slight bow to the king. So they weren't going to do a bow, even though that might be custom in the Middle East, right? And a handshake, they probably felt like, oh, that looks too congenial, right? But they misplayed it because they don't know anything. They were all frozen in time in the 1990s. So they thought, oh, okay, maybe if we do a fist bump, that'll be a compromise. No, it looks more friendly than a handshake. But that's because they're knuckleheads. He didn't accidentally impromptu do the fist bump. They planned that as if it was a good idea. That's how out of touch they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so out of step, this administration, with like from day one. It's like, how did you not harness any of the youth that got you elected into your messaging strategy? Like, it's unbelievable. They are just day in and day out refusing to see what the actual people who had energy and got this administration in power. Yeah, and that's just such a crazy story. Like, how can, a party that has so many different elites in different like messaging strategies, how is that how you schedule this type of greeting? And it's just such an indictment of our whole system that now, again, as with our first story, the price of oil is being held above all of our heads, and it's saying like, oh, well, don't you want cheap gas? Don't you want cheap gas? Well, now we're gonna be, best friends with Saudi Arabia and MBS, and also you can't have any meaningful climate change, and also we can't do any of this.
Yep.
All because you are gonna be paying $6 at the gas pump. So it's like they're making all of these equivalencies, and like something's gonna break soon. We can't live like this.
Well, in terms of the climate, no, long term we can't. Jesse Waters, I think, is a perfect avatar for the way basically every conservative has talked about the gas crisis throughout this year. They pretend to have an issue with the price being high, and there are some things that they will accept supposedly to drop it. Additional drilling, which of course is gonna help for 5-10 years, and even then the gas would just be sold on the international market. It would have virtually no impact. Palling around with MBS and all that, that's all totally fine. Stopping them from price gouging? No. Windfall profits tax? No, you can't do any of that. Hey, he says it's fine to do this with Saudi Arabia because who wants $10 gas? You know what will happen when gas is $10? Jesse Waters still won't support transitioning to renewable energy. So we could do that. We could have started doing that a decade, 20 years ago. They will never actually accept that. They like using the oil, and honestly, the price being higher just means they make more money. So don't buy the supposed indignation. Anyway, with that said, why don't we move on to our next topic, starting with this video.
Joe Biden is actually implementing everything that his party wants him to implement. So it's sort of like firing the coach because you can't fire the whole team. I don't see that he's deviated at all on any major issue from the Bernie Biden manifesto, from the AOC squad agenda. I think he's doing everything they want. It's the agenda that's failing.
Okay, so I don't know what country Sean Hannity lives in, but he certainly isn't watching our country's news. And I get that he's playing a role, but that you could be a year and a half into Biden's first term and believe that Biden has done a lot, and that what he has done is whatever Ilhan Omar would have had him do. He's basically just taking morning text messages from Rashida Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley, and that's just what he does all day long. He's a madman and he needs to be stopped. But we want to make sure that you actually know what's going on. And there's a couple of major problems with what Sean Hannity was showing you. First of all, we want to bring up some of what Joe Biden had said that he would do back when he was campaigning or early on in his administration. Let's bring up this graphic. By the way, that's not the list of like all the things we would ask him to do. We would go far beyond that. Those are the things he said he would do and has not done. And I'm speaking not mainly to the audience, they know all of this. Sean Hannity, he didn't do any of those things. Those things that he, the centrist Democrat, implied that he would. More importantly though than him not understanding how little Biden has done. And by the way, he'll flip-flop and tomorrow he'll be telling his audience that Joe Biden needs to be knocked out because he hasn't done anything. They don't care, they're not tethered to reality. He also implies there that a lot has been done and it's not working, and Joe Biden is becoming unpopular because the things the squad wants him to do are not popular. But we know that that is not true either. There are a number of different policies that we or the squad might encourage him to do that are wildly popular. If you bring up this here, one of the things we were just talking about in the show to deal with the fact that gas prices are going so high. This is a windfall tax on oil profits, incredibly popular. It's 80%. I don't know what you could propose that could be more popular. Obviously, it's a non-starter on Fox News, also on CNN and MSNBC. They're not interested in any of that. Sure, Bernie Sanders would like it, but Biden isn't giving him the time of day. 45% strongly support it. I don't know if I've ever seen strongly support at 45% on virtually anything. What about the expanded child tax credit that they let perish? Wildly popular. I mean, it's close to even on Republican side. Independents are huge fans. Obviously, Democrats wildly like it. The overall budget proposal that we had been discussing over the past year. I mean, look, we can go on and on and on about these policies. We make this point every day, but those two disconnects with reality. The idea that Biden has been successful in accomplishing his agenda and that his agenda was decided upon by AOC is absolute lunacy.
Okay, so this is the oldest trick in the book, and we tell you about it all the time. So a Democrat will come out and say they're going to do certain things. They're never going to do any of that stuff, or any of the progressive stuff. Anything that corporations liked it, of course. Like right now, Biden is like desperate to pass the semiconductor bill. corruption is in the title of the bill. It's our money that we're going to give to incredibly wealthy semiconductor companies. That he cares a lot about. He's like, oh, the semiconductor donors, I gotta deliver for them. I've got to, right? Everything else is like, oh yeah, all the incredibly popular things that you guys want, like voting rights, I'm not gonna do that. Oh, we lost Roe on my watch, I'm not gonna do anything about that. I put together a couple of commissions. Okay, so then the Democrat is useless. He's a total corporate Democrat, doesn't do anything progressive. Then right-wingers come out and go, can you believe how progressive he is? And they did the progressive agenda and blame progressives. And then what happens next? Mainstream media. But in this case, mainstream media started before Fox News did. We already showed you half a dozen articles where mainstream media was like, Biden did too much. And he did the progressive, they're being too progressive. They're gonna lose the elections, they're being too progressive. Name one goddamn progressive thing he did. Name one thing he did. He didn't do $15 minimum wage. He didn't do any of the bare minimums.
Did he do the Green New Deal? I don't remember.
Green New Deal. Green New Deal's impossible with Biden. Biden is totally corrupt. Okay, it's not even Medicare for all has never even been discussed.
UBI?
Never. UBI, come on, UBI. Are you joking? Are you joking? And John is actually joking, okay? So he hasn't done any of this stuff, but mainstream media and right-wing media, whenever it comes to economic issues, agree a shocking percentage of the time. So Fox News and CNN and New York Times will all say the same thing. Biden was way too progressive. So this is why it's actually very important for the Bernies and the AOCs of the world to come out there super strong and go, no, Biden is a failure. He didn't do anything progressive. Do not let him put his stink on our agenda. His corporate, corrupt stink and odor on progressives. It's his problem. It's corporate Democrats, establishment Democrats, and Democratic leadership that are complete and utter failures. Progressives, you have to very visibly show that you do not agree. You do not agree with that loser who serves corporate donors. Otherwise, yeah, now every right winger is gonna think, oh yeah, you see that? We got the Marxists over here helping the oil companies. They believe going stupid stuff like that. We've shown you clips from Fox News before. They're like, oh yeah, the Democrats probably want to help big banks and oil companies and big drug companies because they're Marxist. Like, what? Okay, so that's one of these, and we got to fight back. Otherwise, this stuff lands on our doorstep, and the New York Times helps Sean Hannity lie.
Yep.
Yeah, and the same New York Times that just came out with some pretty bombshell polling that said that 64% of Democrats do not want Joe Biden to run again. It's like, you have those numbers. It's obviously very clear that the Democratic Party has lost their way. And just quickly on the Sean Hannity thing, it's like, I think we should take the win that they are no longer like listing the things anymore, because it's always like, yeah, like universal pre-K and like background checks. And they have realized that like when they actually enumerate the things that progressives are calling for, it looks like a dream world.
Yeah.
And so like we've all seen those memes where they've made that mistake before. And this is the Republican strategy that is incredibly effective with the Biden administration. Yeah, doing absolutely nothing for progressives and a lot of people who put them in office. But yeah, the GOP strategy is to keep people angry, keep people poor, keep people, just keep the news in this cycle of chaos. And you're absolutely right. The only thing that we can do is hold firm in our progressive beliefs and make it so that the progressive wing of the Democratic Party becomes like the right wing base. They control that entire agenda of the Republican Party, and it's twisted, but we have to become that base that really dictates what the party is going to do and who they're serving. And we have, it's never been more popular than it is now.
I gotta say it. That's absolutely true, but here, I hate to say it, but Bernie's let us down big time. Because Bernie just loves Joe Biden. He thinks that they're best friends. I don't know if they're gonna go on some sort of trip together after they both retire, right? Cross-country trip, holding hands or whatever. I don't care that he's your friend, Bernie. I don't care at all. He's a terrible guy. He didn't do a single thing he promised you. He lied to you 1,000 times over. And I don't care how polite he was to you. if you don't visibly fight him, people will say that he did the Bernie manifesto. You just heard it on Fox News. You've got to get up, rise up for all of us, for your voters, and say that ain't the progressive manifesto. He didn't do a goddamn thing that was progressive. Look at this windfall profits tax, and get in his face, go, Biden, why aren't you doing a windfall profits tax on oil companies? It pulls at 80%. And you know what Politico did instead? They ran an article, we showed it to you yesterday. It's time for lower wages. And they said it'll be good for the American worker, lower wages. That'll solve inflation. How about a profits tax on oil companies? That could also solve inflation way better. And they're like, no. Why? Nobody's even discussing it. Because progressives in Congress, honestly, have completely laid down. Oh, we can't criticize Biden. We out there, then the media will yell at us. Oh, will they? Okay, I'm sorry, but you got to gather some internal and intestinal fortitude, and don't give a damn what the media says and what your goddamn friend Joe Biden says, and go out there and fight, because otherwise we're gonna get stuck with this bag of crap, and Sean Hannity's gonna drop it off at our doorstep.
Why don't we take our last break of the hour? When we come back, updates on the fight to persuade people over gun control, as well as Joe Biden stepping in advance of a strike. After this.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Caroline, also outpatient. So glad you made it out. Hit the join button below on YouTube, we appreciate it. Come join us, let's do strong, honest news together. John.
Yes, okay, let's jump into this. There's a procession of 52 school buses that's traveling to Ted Cruz's home and his office to make a point that you can probably guess from looking at this video. It is going to demonstrate the impact of gun violence specifically on children. Now, this many buses, when you stretch it out, it's going to travel over about a mile long. And each of the seats in the buses, it totals 4,368. It represents each of the children who has died from gun violence just since 2020. You could pack all of those buses full of just the kids that have died in just the last 2 years. And for most of you, this is probably horrendous. But for someone like Ted Cruz and the party he's a part of, the movement he's a leader in, it isn't. It needs to be pointed out to them how unacceptable this should be. The project is being called the NRA Children's Museum, that's something. It's being created by Manuel Oliver, who lost his son Joaquin in the 2018 Parkland shooting. And in addition to the symbolism of the buses, they actually have items memorializing some of those who've died in this violence, including the vans of a 15-year-old Gracie who was killed at her Santa Clarita High School back in 2019, a kindergartner's graduation card with a smiling teddy bear on it given to a Sandy Hook victim, as well as his children's-sized red gloves, a LeBron James Miami Heat jersey that was actually, I believe that was Joaquin's. I don't know at this point what can possibly get through to these politicians. I don't know that making Ted Cruz or any of these other Republicans stare at and have to acknowledge how many, a mountain of kids that have been killed in just a few years could possibly get through. But thank God there are people like Manuel who are trying to be creative, trying to figure out how we can stop more buses from being added to that trail.
So that's super powerful. That's buses full of dead children's ghosts coming to haunt Republicans who allowed them to be murdered because they took millions of dollars from the gun lobby. And don't get it twisted, the Republican voters, first of all, are split on the issue in a way that you do not ever see in the press. Federal background checks poll anywhere from 88% to 97%, not of Democrats, of the whole country. Federal background checks have significant majority support from gun owners, not just Republicans, not just right-wingers, but from right-wing gun owners. They want it. So why don't the Republicans do what their own voters want, because their donors are the gun lobby, and they say, no, I'm making money. I don't want no goddamn background checks. That's gonna lower the amount of money I make. If you do federal background checks, less criminals will buy guns. A criminal buying a gun and a good guy buying a gun, it's the same profit either way. So Ted Cruz, I don't care how many dead kids there are. In fact, when the bad guys kill the kids, everybody panics and buys more guns.
Yep.
So Ted Cruz and every Republican out there, you're to be a prostitute for gun manufacturers and let those kids die. So I hope they haunt Ted Cruz and every other Republican for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, it's a total indictment of not only our democracy, but just the concept that our country rests on, that we, pretend that that the government works for the people, when this issue is just such a clear example of how we absolutely don't. Like Cenk said, there is so much bipartisan support for these issues, and I think we talk about a lot of really awful things on this show that our government is capable of, but this will absolutely be one of, if not the most biggest stains on the American project. I mean, these buses are haunting, and they very much should be. This is no society with the level of advancement that we should have to look at these images. And Ted Cruz and the rest of the GOP who are holding up any bipartisan, true bipartisan gun legislation that will actually save lives should, I can't even articulate how just ridiculous this is. And this art project is, like you said, what else can we do? What else can be done if there is so much bipartisan support? So that's why projects like this it's all we have at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna say one last thing. Actually, I'm gonna give the last word to Manuel Oliver himself, because I interviewed him on The Conversation a little while back, and I asked him about his son Joaquin and the loss. And I want to show you what he said, which is what he turned out to do with this project.
Does it ever get any better?
I would say there's mixed feelings, okay? And I think that everyone reacts in a different way, and we all have the right to react in a different way. As I told you, I'm an artist, so I like to express myself. And every time I express myself using art, I feel better. And in this particular case, I love sharing stories of my son, drawings of my son, because as I told you before, it's the only way that I feel that I'm still his dad.
Yeah, politicians are the worst people on earth. Okay, John, next story.
Yeah. One final point. I'm not great at math, but I believe it works out to in the next month we're gonna fill up one more bus, and then one more bus the month after that, and the month after that. Like, you could conceivably think of the midterms as being like 3 buses away. Christmas is 5 buses away, and nothing is gonna be done from all the people who could solve this problem if they want to. Other countries have. It's eminently solvable, but we choose not to. Okay, let's mix it up. Let's end with this. President Joe Biden has intervened to stop what could have been an absolutely massive strike of railroad workers. Over 100,000 workers had been set to strike after working for apparently years to improve their positions, their quality in life, and he is going to stop that. But for who? And what will be the outcome of this? We're gonna dive into some of the initial details. This is very recent news, just bear that in mind. So he blocked a freight railroad strike. It would have, and this of course is being spun from the point of view of the corporation and the White House, a freight railroad strike that would disrupt shipments of all kinds of goods for at least 60 days by naming a board of arbitrators to intervene in the contract dispute. This is going to stop 115,000 rail workers, going to keep them on the job while arbitrators develop a set of contract recommendations for both sides to consider. A new round of negotiations between the two sides would happen after those recommendations are issued. And in theory, we could conceive of a world where those recommendations are received well from the side of the workers, and maybe the corporation accepts it, and then there's no need for a strike. But in theory, if the recommendations aren't acceptable, what happens after the 60 days? Do the workers get the ability to organize again? I don't know. They seem to be saying that this can't be accepted. You cannot stop the shipment of goods. That would create more shortages, more inflation. That's why they're intervening in emergency, sort of stance here. Are they not going to be worried about that sort of shortages or inflation in 60 days? This is the ability, workers have this ability and few others in America in 2022 to do something by organizing, by threatening, or in reality striking. And they've temporarily lost that ability. Now maybe it'll end up being all for the good. Maybe Biden will come out swinging on behalf of the workers, and after 60 days, they'll get the wages they need, they'll get the job security, they'll actually be able to take time off. If we can get into the details, that's been one of the major issues, that they're effectively on call literally at all hours of all days. But maybe not. Maybe they just can't strike anymore. And it's not Trump who made this happen. It's a Democratic president. It's Joe Biden.
So, okay,
we'll see.
So if you're following the actual news, you see that this would be the least surprising thing you ever saw, right? So Joe Biden comes out against the workers and in favor of corporations. That's called Tuesday. Okay, he does that every day, all day. He's a corporate Democrat. Now, if you're a sucker and you read the New York Times and you watch CNN, you won't ever see that. If you watch Fox News, as we showed you earlier in the show, you'll see that he's so pro-worker. He's too pro-worker. Oh, he hates corporations. He hates capitalism. He's absurd. Okay, so that's standard. Okay, but the reason why I think this story is really interesting is because, so Joe Biden can issue an executive order. So he can take strong action immediately. Because he said that he would take $10,000 of student debt off of everybody, and we all know he can do it through executive order. It's been a year and a half, he just can't seem to find that executive order. Where's my pen? Where's my pen, right? Marijuana, he said that he would deschedule marijuana. He could just completely take it off of Schedule 1 at least, and move it down at a minimum. He said he would. He said he'd do it on day one. It's been a year and a half. Can't find the pen. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Can't find it. Well, we just did a story today about how Joe Manchin killed all potential action on climate change. But actually, good news. Senator Whitehouse and others have suggested about 9-10 different executive orders that Joe Biden could do today. He hasn't done it. Oh, the pen. Gosh darn it. I can't. No, there's nothing I could do. Nothing I could do. Oh, workers might go on strike and hurt corporate profits by 1%. Or 1% of 1%. Oh, God damn, give me there it is, I found the pen. Executive order right away. I protect corporate America. I'm here for you, donors. Nothing will fundamentally change. I swear to God, I'll crush any goddamn worker who tries to get more money or anything out of you, corporate donors, Joe Biden promises.
Yeah.
That's the one promise he kept. He told his donors, don't worry, I love you and I'll protect you at all costs. And here we are. That's exactly what he's doing. It's the only executive order he could find the goddamn pen for. Funny how that works.
Yeah, I mean, this is the guy who ran as the successor to FDR. Like, there were all those, and it's like,
2.0.
You could have just stayed out of this one. You didn't, I mean, there's so many things that he either could have done direct an executive order on, or just like not gotten involved. And I just don't understand how you can run on so many things and then do the exact opposite. I mean, yes, as we said multiple times, money, that's how you do it. But yeah, the point is if you get in, there's in labor relations, there's pretty much like, if you get in the way of an authorized strike, it's pretty hard to come back from that for the workers. And I know there's a lot of details that hopefully we'll get into if we have a little bit of time, but the headline here is just that he's not a friend to workers. He's not a friend to the progressive movement. Labor unionizations have been widespread across the country. It's actually one of the few things that Democrats are actually like polling well on when they're asked about like union involvement, stuff like that. And it's just insane that the one thing that the left is actually really excited about, the president, the head of the party, is pretty much seemingly doing everything in his power to crush it. And that is insane for someone who ran on an FDR-like platform. And yeah, the details are harrowing. These rail workers are being asked to devote 90%, literally 90% of their lives to being on the job. And yeah, that's doesn't lead to good things about the American way of life if this is how we're operating.
Super last thing on this is that a huge part of the problem, as always, here is the refs. So if the refs actually did their jobs and say, oh, Joe Biden has every single thing he's passed has helped corporations, and almost nothing has helped the average worker. In fact, this prohibits them from going on strike. There will be consequences if they go on strike. So it cripples when labor actually does something on its own. They're not waiting for the president, because if you wait for the president, he'll only hurt you, right? And they decide to do something. But did the New York Times tell you that? Have they told you that everything he's done has been in favor of corporations and he's actively helped to defeat all the progressive agenda? Did they tell you, big headline, you see it and you turn on MSNBC? MSNBC is the biggest liars of all. Did they tell you that he's actually against the American worker? That he'll help corporations no matter what? That's the one time he's super strong is when he's helping corporate America and donors? No, they never tell you that. So that's why Joe Biden does this in the middle of the night, in the darkness of night, and gets away with it. And then goes out and pretends that he is doing the Democratic agenda and he's for the average worker and screws over everybody. Media, do your goddamn jobs. I know, it's hopeless, you never will. You think your job is pleasure in corporations. All right, we gotta go. Everybody check out Caroline on Rebel Headquarters, check out John on Damage Report. We have amazing stories coming up. Republicans are now trying to change the meaning of the word abortion. Of course they are, when we come back. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.